You've said that this will be the biggest crash in world history. Maybe explain why. What is actually happening right now that we might not see reported in the papers every day? What's actually going on?
Years and years ago, I was benefit of studying with a man named Buckminster Fuller. He's considered a futurist. And he invented the geodesic dome and all this. And my poor dad, I had a rich dad and a poor dad. And my poor dad just adored him. Because my poor dad was an academic, PhD from Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern, University of Hawaii. So academics loved Bucky Fuller. And he built the geodesic dome in 1967. I hitchhiked, I was at school in New York, went from Hawaii to New York, and I hitchhiked to Montreal, Canada, to Expo 67, the World's Fair on the Future, because I like looking into the future. And Bucky Fuller's dome was there. It was a U.S. pavilion at Expo 67. And I went through there. I said, man, that guy thinks differently, Buckminster Fuller. So just check him out. When I was a kid, my poor dad used to have me, he'd have me building the structures of universe. He called them like squares, tetrahedrons, icosahedrons, dodecahedrons. I'm like 10 years ago. What the hell am I studying this stuff for, But it affected my brain because I was working with my hands. So I was doing math with little sticks and glue and things like this. I learn more by doing, not by reading books. When I'm doing something, I learn more. So in 60s, after building the dome dealing little tetrahedrons, icosahedrons, dodecahedrons as a kid, it stuck in my brain. So in 1967, I'm in school, the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, one of the 5 federal schools in America, military school. And I hitchhiked from New York to Montreal, and I went through the geodesic dome. It blew me away. I went, holy man. And so for 3 years, 81, 82, and 83, I studied with Fuller during the summer to how to see the future. And next year sometime, I'm coming out with a book called The Raven. And the raven in Greek mythology was the god of prophecy. And so here's this book here, Rich Dad's Prophecy, just to prove I back up what I say. I can prove I said this stuff. So I said the biggest stock market crash is still coming. And this was after the 2008 crash. And the reason I could predict that the 2008 crash was just a prelude for the bigger crash coming, which we are in today in 2022. I mean, even China's crashing today because they never fixed the problem. In fact, the whole problem is that the global economic system is rigged. It's called the central bank system. The Bank of Japan, the Bank of England, stuff like this. This whole system is rigged. So Fuller passed away in 1983. In 84, his book came out called The Grunch of Giants. And so he was already dead. And I'm reading Grunch of Giants, and Grunch of Giants stands for Gross Universal Cash Heist. It's how our wealth is stolen via our money. And that fit my whole internal belief system. If you don't believe it, you think he's a whack job. But in 1984, I said, man, this guy is onto it. Fuller is onto it. So I read Grunch of Giants, and that's how I can write books like Prophecy. And the way I'm not just blowing smoke today is go get the book. And so what happened, 2008 crash, and then that set up the biggest bull market in history. But it was based upon fake money. They just kept printing more, using more debt. Because as you know, Brian, money is debt. If we don't borrow money, money doesn't exist. So money comes into existence because every time you use a credit card, take out a mortgage, buy a car, that's when money is created. And that goes back to 1913. Again, the Federal Reserve Bank was created, central banks, which is Marxism. And then in 1913, in America, the Internal Revenue Service was created, the IRS, because money cannot exist without debt and taxes. So I'm sitting there going, holy moly. So every time I talk to you, I get the chills because you are on the inside of it. And I'm on the outside trying to figure it out. And what are these guys up to? And as you know, in 2021, China collapsed. And that's why COVID appeared again. Notice that? So Evergrande, which is the biggest, I think it's bigger than Lehman Brothers crash. And Evergrande's going down. Now, when real estate goes down, it's a financial crash more than anything else. They have 90 million condos in China not occupied. So what that does is it's this big sucking sound, like it's going down the toilet right now. When real estate goes down, it takes all the economies of the world with it. Like, Australia, one of my favorite countries, ships a lot of supplies to China. And there, Australia was booming because China was booming with real estate. And so in 2021, when it collapsed, that means Australia collapses more. But that's why I think Australia locked the country down also. Everybody to stay indoor and all this. I personally think they're afraid of civil unrest. So I think that's why, COVID appeared in, September 17, 2019, our repo market collapsed. And the repo market is the shadow banking system, as they call it. You don't see that market, but I'm watching the shadow banking system. And when the repo market collapsed in September 17, 2019, voila,